Hi everybody, Ray Hayden here, and this video is going to be about the painting of this cabinet. I have to paint this cabinet because the cleaning process that we use is heavy duty. It's kind of diluted bleach and stuff like that. So, when we wipe this down and clean it down and spray it down and stuff like that, that bleach kind of eats away at the finish and then starts eating away at the wood. Now this cabinet's a little bit darker than these other ones here because it's a non-original cabinet. It came in later because this used to be where our dishwasher was. That was on the fritz. That was a done deal. So we removed that, took that out. And then I put this one in here and we customized this. We had to trim part of the top off to lift it up a little bit more to put wheels underneath it so we can roll it out. The reason why we do that, and you can see there's no kick plate down here for that, but these tiles go all the way back to the floor, the wall in the back, which is like an added bonus for us to do that. So we can keep it all clean in the back and we can keep, everything cleaned on the front and underneath it and everything else. But doing a lot of hardcore cleaning on this cabinet has done damage to it. So before that gets much worse, I'm going to go ahead and prime it up. First, I'm going to clean it. I've already done that. I've already cleaned it a couple of different ways, a couple of different times, just to make sure it's nice and dry and everything before I start painting. Now I'm going to prime it up, and I use Kills 3, so I got to give you the disclaimer. Nobody's paying me for my opinion or anything like that. This is the stuff I use. I pay my own money, my own cash for it. This is what I use because I decided that for me, this is what works best for me and my usage, and it's Kills 3. It's a water-based product, and I just like the way the Kills products work. I'm also using a Purdy brush. I don't care about the brush so much, but when I painted a million years ago professionally, the company I was working with used Purdy brushes, and they had other brushes too that you could use. But I like the quality of the Purdy brushes. This is not a new brush. This one here is a number of years old, but you can still see there's paint on it and stuff. I clean it up the best I can, and I try to keep them really clean, but this one here has been used quite a bit. So anyway, but it still works, still does smooth paint job. It's got the nice bristles on the end of it and everything else to make a nice smooth paint job. So what I'm going to do is I've already cleaned it, like I said, but I'm going to prime it up with a coat of Kills 3 here, and then I'm going to do a light sanding on it if need be. If it dries in and flows in well and everything else is smooth enough, then I'll just go ahead, I can just go ahead and do a second coat on it. I'm always doing 2 coats of primer anyway. That's just me, You probably could do 1, but I do 2. And then I might do a 3rd primer coat on it. It really depends on 2 things. If it flows well and it's smooth, then I won't have to do the sanding. But if I have to do some sanding, I'm going to do another coat of primer on top of that too. That's just the way I work on that because I want it to be nice and smooth. These surfaces are pretty smooth as they are now. There's a little bit of a grain feel you can feel here on this board here, but other than that, I just as long as it looks smooth, it is smooth, and it's easier to clean, and it can still look good. That's what I'm looking for here. So I'm not going to record me painting the thing, but I am going to come back here after I've done the first coat and the second coat, and I'll tell you if I had to sand in between. All right, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in a minute. Hey, everybody back, and I have painted the front face, and I painted up on top along here, the 2 sides, and I painted this whole door. It's probably dry to touch right now, which is not dry for a second coat. It's got to dry for an hour or 2, probably. I'll look at the label of the Kills. Oh, actually stored it in the cabinet. But anyway, so I'll check out the cabinet on here. Our thing says, we see, paint in 1 hour. So I can repaint in an hour, probably since now. Let me just check out the time right here. Okay, good. That's plenty of time. It's so early morning. I get this done. Now, I didn't paint the inside of the door, and I haven't painted the front. Actually, I haven't painted any part of the drawer part. I'll catch that later in between the things that is going on. But as you can see here, right, it's got a nice, it's a pretty smooth coating on it. I can touch it now, and it doesn't feel too rough. So I might wait until after the second coat and recheck it. Now what I do is after I go over it, right, I check, and especially like corners down here and stuff, like in the corner of the paint job, you might, that's a really great place because gravity and all that, and you might see a little pile up of paint there. That's going to be like a drip kind of run, but it's going to be in the corners, the bottom corners and things of that nature. So that's when I would go around with the brush and maybe even damp it dampen it with a little bit of water if it's not easy enough to paint to kind of get that cleared out of there. But I want to get that cleared out, and I did. So I had to do that in both of the bottom corners there. Usually like things up here, like in that corner and this corner here, you might get that. And I did paint this inside of the drawer, but I didn't paint this side yet, and I didn't paint the top yet. I'm going to paint those later on. I'll probably do the top then the side, but I will get all, you know, the 2 coats I will get done probably before 2 o'clock today, and you know, within a couple hours time it'll be done. And then I will come back and check it out for the light sanding. I don't need to do a really light sanding right now, but I want to get that second coat on there before cats get too interested in what's going on here. And then I will go ahead and take another shot of that. But this is the midterm or the mid-process thing. I've done 1 coat, that's just a single coat. And then, oh, I haven't done this side here or the door either, but that's because I had the door open. The hinges on this, if you open the door, you can't paint that side because it's almost right up against that. So I'm holding off on that. I will do that during the next coat, but I won't paint this side. On the second coat, I won't paint this side. I'll paint this side over here that I haven't touched yet, all right? And then my cat's going crazy. But then I'll catch you after I do the second coat after that's fully dried, all right? So catch you in a minute. Okay, we're back after doing a second coat. Now, not everything is second coated. This side over here is kind of partially second coated. And this whole thing has been second coated. And the way I second coat it is I use a little roller, okay? And I use this little roller with this little pan, all right? So it just works out nice and there's not too much sloppy extras, you know, rolling around and stuff like that. Now, I don't have that topper for the 1 quart pan. You know, you put a little thing on the side and you can dump out the paint and it works out nice and smooth. Now, I don't have that. I just ordered a couple of them. You just put on top and they just work. But this can has a little dent over here, so that might be a problem. So anyways, I got to pour some paint out. Now, I don't lose much paint. I save it, but I noticed like I got some paint here. So what I did is I don't like that because it covers up the label and stuff. So what I did is I take some painter's tape, that blue tape, green tape, whatever you want to use, and I made a little lever here so I can pull it off, a little fold. So I can pull that off of there, and that'll keep the can cleaner, which is nice. And then I can go back to work. So this is the second coat, right? It's going to get a third coat. And on the drawer that is not here, I haven't done anything to that yet, but that's in my office. So I will paint that in my office. All right. I decided to do that. Basically, it's our silverware drawer or our utensils drawer. So I'll take those out, stand it on its side, and that way I can do the whole thing like a tabletop. Right? That makes sense? All right, so on this one here, I'm gonna pour some paint out into my little pan and I'll show you what this ends up looking. This should be all white because there's paint on it, but what I do is I take my paint brush and I scrape it off and I put it back in the can. There's also that, just like this ridge here, it's here, that is the ridge that's poking into the top of the can. You'll know it when you start working with it if you don't know what I'm talking about. But on the inside of the can, paint is gonna get in there too. If you leave that paint in there, don't do that, okay? But if you leave that paint in there, what's gonna happen is your top is not gonna close tightly at some point. You use the paint 2, 3, 4 times. That's not gonna paint. You gotta keep it clean like this one out here to the best of your ability. Some paint's gonna stick to it, but you know, you can't have globs of paint in there. It's gonna act like, not glue, but more like caulking or something like that, and it's gonna stick. And your lid's gonna be real tough to get off, and it's gonna be real tough to put back on. So you don't wanna have to deal with that. So clean it up real good. So I take, what I take is like an old rag that we don't use for anything specifically, but it's not falling apart either, okay? So it can still hold the moisture and stuff. I dampen that up and I rinse it out. So now it's like kind of slightly damp. And I use that, once I clean it out with the brush, I go through it just like this with the brush, okay? And I get all that paint out of there the best I can, put it back in the can, and then I go with the brush again and making sure I get all that paint out the best of my ability. Then I go through with the sponge and I clean it out. Now that paint is not going back in the can. The brush stuff can, but the stuff that's going on the sponge is not going back in the can. And then I put the top back on nice and clean. So I'll show you after I'm going to take a break here and I'm going to show you what it looks like after I've done that. So I'm going to pour paint into this pan, and this paint will go back in if I don't use it all, into that, and then I wash it out again, right? But I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now there's one more thing I noticed, because I'd already used the roller, and I cleaned it up real good and everything else, but it's still damp. So what I do is I take a clean paper towel and I put that down and I roll. I should simulate, right? I put that down on the floor and I roll it out. And I can do it with my hand too, and roll it out to get as much moisture as I can out of that, because I just want the paint, not really moisture, because this is going to be especially to me, this will probably be close to the final coat, and I don't need to do any sanding on this yet. It feels nice and smooth enough to me. Just like the other cabinets, feels pretty good. You know, it has a little bit of a texture on it because of the roller, but that's good. You know, they're not matchy-matchy. That's actually, you know, quite contrasty, shall we say. All right, so I'll be right back and I'll show you what this can looks like after I've dumped the paint in there and cleaned up that can, okay? Hang on. Okay, so I poured some paint into my tray, all right? And I've already cleaned up. I guess I'll tilt this down and see if we can see it, right? Without dropping it. Well, there's the side. So you got some white paint on the side there, but you notice that top isn't really full of paint. All right. Now there might be some white paint here and there and stuff like that, but just as long as it's not down in that groove, all right, then I can push my top back on and seal it up, and you feel it sealing up pretty good, and then that will be like that. So that's nice and relatively clean. And when I get done for the day, I can just peel this off, and then the label should be, it won't be as clean because I already messed up and got some paint on the label, but you know, that'll help. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this. It'll only take me a few minutes. That'll be the third coat for most of it, okay? And then I'll come back and do the touch-up stuff I need to do to finish that off, all right? Now this one here, I use the brush normally in this. Let me tilt the camera a little bit. There we go. So in this part here, I usually use the brush. Okay, but this time I'm going to roll it out in this area too, and that puts more paint in there, and then immediately I'll take the brush. I just want to get more paint on it for coverage purposes, and then I'm going to get this out for smoothing it out, just in case there's any splooges or splodges or anything like that, and then clean that up. Right? So stay tuned. I'll catch you in a minute. All right, so I've cleaned up from using my stuff. I've cleaned up my little roller. I take it off of the handle and I really wash it out well, and then dry it off as good as I can. And I use that paper towel thing, so I reuse that a couple of times. Now I couldn't roll this section here, the design aspect of it. So I got some paint in there and I brushed it. Then that's fine. That's fine for that. Now I have to come back and finish anything that's undone, like the side over here is undone. I'll do that later on. I can take a while for doing that, and that's okay. Basically, I call it the money run. You want to get the big part of it done completely, the best you can, and then just finish the touch-up stuff later on. So far that I can tell, I won't have to go ahead and sand any of it. So when I'm prepared to do light sanding on it and then do a finish coat, this is 3 coats by the time I'm done with everything. 3 coats of primer on there, and I won't have to sand anything. I just had to clean it down real well, make sure it was all cleaned off, and make sure that there was nothing, that needed a light sanding before I even started. So that's important. Now I want to make another note here. Something I completely forgot about is this railing here that's white. My wife, Miss Demeaner, she painted all that. This area can take a beating. The cat's jumping up and down the counters with their claws. Us, banging around with pots and pans or whatever we're doing. So this was a wooden, the same color kind of stuff as the counters and all that. It was all done the same material or same, color, palette and all that. But because of the beating it was taking, it's like, we'll rather rip everything out. We got a lot of cats still, and, and they do their damage. But rather than rip everything out and then redo it to have the cats tear it up again, why not just, leave it the way it is and then take care of it, maintain it, upgrade it as we can, and painting. And if this cabinet comes out looking really, really good, because it's like a replaceable kind of cabinet deal, because I put it on wheels, like I said. Oh, by the way, underneath there's no kick plate, right? We discussed that before. I said there's no kick plate. I think I discussed it before. But if I'm standing back there quite a bit, if I'm standing back there away, I can see the board that I had placed under there to level the bottom of it to make it so I can put the wheels, because there's wheels on there, right? and they have to sit back far enough till they're sitting under there a little bit, I can see that board. So now because it's white, I notice the board. So I will have to later on paint that board. You know, I'll just reach under there and paint that up, and I do a couple of coats of the primer on there, and that should look good. I am going to do, during the break time, waiting for this to dry up, and then do some more touch up on the sides over there that I haven't completed yet. I'll get those closer to that third coating of paint. I'm going to go do the drawer, and I just need to do the whole frame on the outside, the sides that we don't normally see, and then the face of it. And basically I'm going to remove the cutlery or whatever, the forks, spoons, and knives. I'll take that stuff out, and I'll just basically stand it up like a table, and then I can just paint the whole thing and get it done pretty quick. All right, so I'll get 2 coats on there, and then I'll do a 3rd coat and see how that looks with the rest of it. All right, so that should be the next video, or maybe I'll make it an additional video after this. I don't want to make it too long, right? So anyway, so we'll wrap it up with this. We'll come back and visit this in another video. And with that, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, like the video, make a comment below. Let me know you came by to say hi. And if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel. I greatly appreciate the growth on the network. And until I catch you in the next video, take care and be well.